to introduce now our guest speaker, and I am honored to introduce him. His name is David Noble. He's a partner and litigator with Crawley, Fleck & Billings, Montana. David is here with his wife, Catherine, and his daughter, Gigi, so welcome to all of you. Thank you so much. David has practiced law across the country, from Miami to Florida to Wichita, Kansas, and now everywhere in Montana. He grew up in Manhattan, Montana, and is a fifth-generation Montanan. His ancestors homesteaded the Sweetgrass Hills in the 1800s. He earned his BA in political science with high honors from the University of Montana, where he participated in the Model United Nations in New York City, studied abroad twice, interned for a U.S. senator, and was actively involved in multiple organizations. He attended the University of Miami School of Law in Miami, Florida, and graduated magna cum laude from law school, and has won numerous academic awards. When not working, David enjoys taking his wife and family on camping and backpacking trips in Montana wilderness and national forest, and travels extensively throughout the world. He is an occasional guest host on Montana's leading statewide talk radio program, Montana Talks, with Aaron Flint. So please welcome David Noble.
Thank you so much. How about those Gallatin County Republican women? I'm truly honored and humbled to be here. It's great to be back in the Gallatin Valley. Grew up in Manhattan, Montana. It's a lot different now. I'm so thankful for my wife, Catherine, and my stepdaughter, Gigi, both here. My parents are both here. It's so fantastic to be here. And these things are so important. And driving up and down Main Street is just so critical. And I had this realization the other day about why it's so important that we get out and perform in the public and show people that there's patriotic Americans that care about the Constitution. And one of the main reasons is so that other people see that they're not alone. Because if you just pay attention to the media and you watch TV or you do anything like that, you may not even know that there's a whole bunch of people in the Gallatin Valley that still support the Constitution, that support the United States of America. And so sending that message is huge. And I'm truly humbled to be here with all of you people. You guys are the ones that are making a difference in this world. I obviously am doing everything I can to try to build a better future for the country. You all are here too. I'm so proud of you, and you guys could be at home scrolling on Facebook on your phones or watching TV, but you're here tonight. The Gallatin County Republican women doing so much good stuff. I encourage everybody to support the Gallatin County Republican women. And let me just give a shout out to Aaron Flint and Montana Talks. He is doing so much good work for the state. Let me give a shout out to all the callers on Montana Talks too, who do better media job and better journalism than almost anybody. I mean seriously, how many news stories have broke beyond Montana Talks because of callers? People like you, people like me. I was a caller on Montana Talks before I became a guest host. And I mean, it's just incredible to see the impact that Aaron Flint and Montana Talks is having, and the callers and people getting involved. And so truly honored and thankful to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. So I was gonna ask, do you guys think it's just a coincidence that Donald Trump's birthday is the same day as Flag Day? Because it seems a little bit too coincidental in my opinion. I really like the flag resolution that was passed on June 14th, 1777. Resolved that the flag of the 13 United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, written in a blue field representing a new constellation. And isn't that the truth? It really is a new constellation. We have something very, very special here. Unfortunately, we're at a point where we actually need to save America. And I saw on the flyer here, this is a Save America rally. And I honestly feel we're on the precipice of losing everything our Constitution stands for. In fact, and by the way, if anybody has any questions throughout this, please just raise your hand. I would love to take questions. I'm only going to talk for a few minutes, but if you guys have any questions, I'd love to hear them. But there's this constitutional provision called the Interstate Commerce Clause. And that is something that Congress uses to basically control every aspect of our daily lives. And I saw that Joe Biden is trying to ban incandescent light bulbs again after Obama did it and then Trump reversed it. Do we want the federal government telling us what kind of light bulbs we can have? No! They're also going after our furnaces. I just saw this news story the other day. They're literally going after furnaces and trying to tell us what kind of furnaces we can have in our house. I mean, it's absolutely staggering. But then they do this all under the Interstate Commerce Clause. And there's this case called Wickard v. Filburn from the 1930s. And by the way, just so you all know, the Supreme Court was striking down all of FDR's New Deal legislation throughout the 30s. If you've heard of the switch in time that saved 9, that refers to when FDR, a Democrat, threatened to pack the court in the 1930s until the Supreme Court reversed itself and started approving the New Deal programs. And it's just staggering sitting here today. The Democrats are doing exactly what they did in the 30s and threatening to pack the court and destroy this country. And there's this case called Wickard v. Filburn where there was a grain farmer or a wheat farmer, and he grew wheat on his own farm, and he used the wheat on his own farm for his own purposes. And the Democrat government at the time under FDR passed some kind of law that was regulating wheat production, and he said, hold on, you can't do this. This is not interstate commerce. This is staying within one state. And the Supreme Court held that as long as there's an economic activity that has an impact on interstate commerce, and so because that guy was using his own wheat, therefore he wasn't buying wheat, and that was impacting the interstate market, the Supreme Court said, go ahead and do it. And that was the switch in time that saved 9, where the FDR and the Democrats packed the court. And ever since that time, we've really been living with a constitution in exile, if you've ever heard that term. Rand Paul likes to talk about a constitution in exile. And so I bring that up because, this is not sort of a new phenomenon, the problems that we're facing, but it is really getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. And so I've got a plan that I could propose to save America, and it's a 3-point plan, and I'll talk about it. But the issue isn't really sort of what we do to save America, it's how we get there. And it's the same thing with, for example, let's take elections. It's not some mystery about how to have secure elections. We've done it, other countries do it. It's called, you have a room, and you make a secure room where there's only one way in. You put all the ballots in one room. You get poll watchers there. You have people with a voter registration list, and you have somebody at the door taking IDs, and then they let the person in. They go into the poll booth, they vote, they put it in the box, they leave, and you continue to have poll watchers watch this entire process, including the counting of ballots. This is not, you don't have to be a genius to know how to run a secure election. And frankly, you don't need to be a genius to figure out how to save America. We've got the plan. It's just, do we have the political will? And so much of, I think, what we can do, as Republicans is making sure that our Republican leaders understand how much we care about these issues and how important they are. And so one of the things that I'm really concerned about right now is this new Senate bipartisan framework, they call it. Whenever they've agreed on a framework in Washington, D.C., that's bad news. But this one is particularly bad news, and what they're talking about is having the federal government come in and basically create these financial incentives to have states pass red flag laws. And so the federal government can't come in and directly do a red flag law. What they can do is say, we'll give you money, if you do a red flag law. And I wanted to just, from a lawyer's perspective, explain what a red flag law is and what is so wrong about it. So a red flag law is something that's referred to as an emergency ex parte order. And what that means is basically if somebody thinks you're crazy or somebody thinks you're dangerous, they can go to a court and say, hey, this guy's dangerous, take his guns. The court stamps it and says, yep, take his guns. They go and they take your guns. And then after that, then you're given an opportunity to come in and try to defend it. And so there's actually orders like this that exist in the law. One of them is emergency child custody orders. You can actually, and there's also things called temporary restraining orders, TROs. And these mechanisms are in the law for, sort of a legitimate purpose. So for example, they're intended to be emergency situations where you can't give the other opportunity a chance to be heard. And that's what all of these things have in common, whether you're talking about a temporary restraining order, emergency custody order, or a red flag law. And so that is what's so dangerous about them, is that under these red flag laws, you can have your guns taken from you before you've even been given an opportunity to be heard. And it's a violation of due process, and what they argue is, hey, you'll get your due process afterwards, this is an emergency situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But let's be real. Who's gonna have their guns taken under red flag laws? Is it gonna be Republicans or is it gonna be Democrats? It's always gonna be Republicans. And it's gonna be abused and misused like everything else. So with this bipartisan framework, I just think it's critical that we understand what these red flag laws are and how dangerous they are. And really, there's a bunch of Republicans now that are in favor of this bipartisan framework. I think it's critical that we talk and that we put the pressure on these Republicans and say, no, we don't want the federal government encouraging red flag laws. They also are talking about having more federal government tracking of gun purchases and things like that. And here, I actually had an idea. How about we get rid of the ATF? It's like, why is the federal government even involved in guns at all? States are perfectly capable of regulating the guns, and then they talk about universal background checks. You know what they mean when they say universal background check? They mean that you can't give a gun to your friend or your daughter or son or somebody else without getting the federal government's approval. And it's really weird that they say that the federal government's not keeping a database of everybody that has a gun. Yeah, are we supposed to believe that? They have these rules where if you're a federally licensed firearm dealer, you have to keep records for like 20 or 25 years or something. And I'm like, okay, so you guys are requiring background checks on every purchase. You're requiring the dealers to keep track of all these records, but you're not keeping a database? Like, really? It's honestly preposterous. We need to be going in the other direction. Less federal government involvement. Get rid of the ATF. Let the states regulate it. These are critical, fundamental rights. And then, of course, they're also using global warming as this excuse to control anything and everything. And I've done a lot of research on the actual science, and so there's a couple of scientists that I know of, including Richard Lindzen, an MIT world-renowned climate scientist who disputes the man-made global warming theory and says it's not as big of a problem. And so when I'm arguing with liberals, I always like, oh, do you know of the world's top climate scientist who disputes man-made global warming? Oh, well, that guy, he took oil money. Well, they always attack the character of anybody that disagrees with them. Have you noticed that? They never address the substance. It's always just go straight at the personal attacks on these people. So we've got all of these problems. We've got inflation sky high. And guess what the Democrats are doing? They're worried about January 6th. So I was gonna ask you all if do you guys care about January 6th?
No.
Right, yeah, that's exactly right. What was the price of gas on January 6th? But here again, as somebody who's graduated law school, I listened to Donald Trump's speech on January 6th, and what he said was constitutionally protected speech. He said, go and have your voices heard peacefully. There's nothing wrong with Donald Trump saying go and peacefully have your voices heard. Now, obviously, if people got violent and did illegal activities, nobody condones that. But this is all about Donald Trump, and it's, you know, I do this thing on my Twitch channel where I will watch the Sunday shows just to laugh at them. You know, remember when like Meet the Press used to be kind of interesting? I mean, honestly, like I watched it this last week, all about Donald Trump, all about January 6th, the entire show, all Sunday long, I was just blown away. That's all they have. So I'm hopeful for 2022. I'm really, really hopeful for 2022. But we've got a lot of work to do, obviously. And every time I watch the Sunday shows, which is painful, but it's amazing because all they've got is trying to talk about Donald Trump, and I'm like, didn't you guys already try this in 2020 and it didn't work? One piece of good news for you all. Did you guys hear Sarah Palin made it through the primary and she's going to be on the ballot? Oh, here's another little anecdote from the Sunday shows. They had this new poll that came out, and it was about skyrocketing percentages of the American people no longer trust the government. And I was like, great, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's perfect. But the whole panel on the Sunday shows was, this is such a problem. What are we going to do to fix this? How can we need to get people's trust back in the government. This is such a problem. And it was just such a moment of sort of clarity, because they actually think it's a bad thing when people don't trust the government. It's the exact opposite of sort of everything that we're founded on. And you're not supposed to trust the government. You're not supposed to trust the media. You're supposed to think for yourself. They're actually just, they actually think that's a bad thing. So I was going to talk about some of the stuff that the Democrats have been doing out in public with little kids. But honestly, it's so disturbing, and it's not appropriate to even talk about. In my opinion, it's so disturbing. I can't even explain to you and say to you some of the videos I've seen, because it is so disturbing. Another example of sort of Montana talks and Aaron Flint having a big impact is, did you all hear about what happened at Livingston schools at Eastside Elementary, where they showed an inappropriate video to third graders? That actually happened, and there's a story on it, and we had callers, calling and talking about it. But they are openly pushing this stuff on little kids. It's adult material that's totally inappropriate, and they're just proudly, openly doing it. And it's, on some sense, I'm like, okay, the American people have to realize this is crazy, and the Democrats are going to get wiped out. But yet again, you think that, and then sometimes I don't know how Democrats still win elections. My theory is, I think there's about 50% of Democrat voters, they think the Democrat Party is still sort of a normal party. They're not sort of aware of how extreme they have really become and what they're really pushing. And so I really think it's critical that we all do our part to talk to friends and neighbor and family and explain to them, this is what the Democrat Party believes in, this is what they're pushing, and hopefully some of these, because I think there are people that vote Democrat that still believe in the Constitution, that still believe in freedom. They just aren't aware of how crazy the Democrat Party has really become. And I think and of course the media, won't tell the truth either. I always really like the saying, if the situation was hopeless, the propaganda would be unnecessary. And it's like, Democrats have to lie. I mean, look at John Tester, for example. John Tester claimed that he was a Second Amendment supporter. And now John Tester's all on board with this new Senate bipartisan framework. And so that's honestly, it's a kind of a way to give us hope, because the Democrats, they have to lie to the voters to get people to vote for them. It's going to be a scary time when Democrats can be open and honest with the voters about how radical they really are, and then and still win elections. So that's a really, really disturbing thing. And the violence on the left, what happened to Justice Kavanaugh, what happened with the BLM and Antifa riots, what's happening with gun violence in this country, it's all very, very bad. And you know, my theory is that in order to fix our politics, we first have to fix our culture, and we've got a rotten culture. You can't even turn on, you know, look at some of these latest music videos that come out. I mean, it's truly, truly disturbing stuff. And events like this and doing, you know, driving up and down Main Street, that stuff is critical. And it's also critical that we all partake in being journalists. And that's why I think it's so important that all of you call into the radio shows, post on social media. Think about it. All of this stuff that we're seeing with what these Democrats are doing to little kids out there, we know about it because people like you and people like me have posted about it on social media. And so there's a lot we can do. It's such a powerful moment in time. We all have so much power. That's why I do online content, is because it's possible for each and every one of us to have a lot of reach. And so the more that we can all do that, the more that we can talk to our neighbors, the more that we can get people informed, because the media is not doing it. We don't have an honest media. Aaron Flint and Montana Talks is literally like, you know, one of the only genuine journalists that we have in Montana. I mean, the journalism is pretty much dead. All right, I got one joke for you here. So there was a liberal Democrat found a magic genie's lamp and rubbed it. The genie said, "I will grant you one wish." And he said, "I wish I were smarter." So the genie made him a Republican. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, first off, compliment you on your conservative points of view, but I'm just curious how you manage to be in a law firm that tends to be a little bit left-wing. I mean, they're gonna keep you?
Well, that's always the question. I think they will, and they fully support it. I guess I don't view the firm as sort of a left-wing firm, but it's a great firm. They fully support, you know, me and being on the radio and my conservative views. And frankly, you know, one of the reasons I love that, you know, I've been through indoctrination camps known as college and law school is that then I can go to people and tell you these are indoctrination camps. And so it's really actually disturbing how many lawyers are Democrats. The vast majority of lawyers are Democrats. And you go to these law schools and they teach you these radical interpretations of the Constitution that are wrong. They teach you critical race theory. I was taught critical race theory in law school, and so I know what it is. And they're lying when they say that they're not pushing it on kids. And so this is really a situation where we need to protect our kids from this extreme stuff that they're putting out there, including this critical race theory. But you know, I always tell people that this culture that we have, where like everybody should go to college, is just so wrong. Oftentimes, college is a gigantic waste of money, and frankly, I don't know why the government is funding indoctrination camps. I really don't. So I actually became more conservative the more I studied the Constitution, the more I studied politics, and it's the same with, you know, sort of international travel. A lot of people say, oh, well, if you actually get a long education and you travel the world, you know, you'll be a liberal. Not true. The more I travel the world, the more I study, the more I learn, the more conservative I get.
Well, you're a breath of fresh air. That's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, David. if we made a list of all the things wrong in America, it'd be a long list, but on top of that list, I believe is our failing justice system. It starts with DOJ all the way down. And you mentioned January 6th, I'm curious as a lawyer, what your take is on those prisoners that are still being held in pretrial. I mean, it's the most, I mean, it's terrible. I mean, it hurts me, and the fact that, I think it's the most disgusting, vile thing that this government has done in a long time, and what they're doing to these poor people that, what they did was, I think we all agree, they probably crossed the line, most of them, but I don't know how many, but haven't you seen a judge yet? I mean, 2 years
Yeah.
of this, I mean, it's unbelievable.
No, it's a travesty because they're not getting equal treatment. One of the fundamental notions of a fair justice system is equal treatment. And these BLM Antifa rioters that did way worse stuff got completely off. So I think at the DOJ and DC, we've obviously got a two-tiered justice system. If you're a Republican, you're gonna get the book thrown at you, you're gonna get massacred in the legal system. In the local justice systems, I think it's not as bad, but that's a major problem that needs to be fixed. I do think that they're not being treated equally. I don't know the specifics of any one case, but it's certainly just from what I do know about it, they're not being treated equally in any way, shape, or form, and the justice system is gonna go crazy on any conservatives. It's one of the greatest problems I think probably we've got, and it's something that frankly the next president needs to fix. All right, I'll take a couple more questions and then I'll be done.
Okay. I've been working since before the election of 2020 to do everything I could to have it be fair and free. And I watched what is 2,000 Mules. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it, but I watched it happen in real time. And I'm still furious about it. What do you think the possibilities are that the election is actually going to be overturned and the correct person is reinstated as president?
Okay, thank you so much, Teresa. Teresa asked, she's been doing everything she can to have a secure election. She watched 2,000 Mules, and she asked, what are the chances that the election gets overturned and we get the correct president? I think 0, unfortunately. But here, if you're upset about that, okay, I don't know if you folks have been following the lawsuit that the Democrat Party filed against the state of Montana to invalidate 4 of our election laws. The 2021 Montana legislature did a lot of work to secure our elections. They passed a number of laws. Number 1, they passed a law that you can't use a university ID as a primary form of ID to vote. Obvious reasons. University IDs are not as secure as a driver's license. They're given to out-of-staters regularly. Very obvious reasons to do that. Number 2, they made it so you can't get a ballot until you turn 18. And then number 3, they actually made paid ballot harvesting illegal. And I was stunned when I saw this. The Montana Democratic Party filed a lawsuit in state court in Montana arguing that it's unconstitutional to prohibit paid ballot harvesting. And paid ballot harvesting is when groups like the Montana Democratic Party and a bunch of these other sort of nonpartisan nonprofits, they literally pay people to go door to door ballot harvesting. And there was also, there was something called BIPA, which is the Ballot Interference Protection Act, that the Montana voters voted on, I think in 2017 or 2019. That was held unconstitutional by the Montana courts. We got a judge in Yellowstone County that said it's unconstitutional for the Montana legislature to make it illegal to engage in paid ballot harvesting. And so I bring that up because, ballot harvesting is obviously a problem, but the courts are actually even preventing the legislature from enacting these prohibitions on paid ballot harvesting. So that's actually one reason why the Supreme Court race this time around is so important. I encourage everybody to support Jim Brown on that one.
Brown rice.
Yeah, brown rice, amen. All right, well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.